Rightio, I'm going to talk about this book, Until It Was Loved by Pippa Grant, performed in Jewel by Jason Clarke and Samantha Brentmoor. I love Pippa. I think she's got a great sense of humour, and her books have always been really entertaining to me. And we all know I love Jason and Samantha. They are like top tier for me. Like if I had to pick people, they're in my top 5. Which why it pains me that this isn't going to be a glowing review. Please, before we go any further, do not tag anybody involved in this project in the comments. Do not share this with them. They don't need to see it. This isn't for them. This is for other listeners so they know what they're going to get going in. If you are someone involved in the project and you stumble across this, please know this is just me as a listener and what my opinion was as I listened. And please make sure you go in the right frame of mind so that you are not affected by anything, because I do not want you to watch something that is going to cause you any sort of upset or harm. So let's talk about it. Like I say, I've enjoyed Pippa's books in the past, and so we open up with Fletcher and Goldie, and she knows who he is because there was a situation. He doesn't recall that. She is a former soccer football player, and he is a rugby player who has just been transferred to a team in the States. He was playing in England, and he has a moustache. Now, I'll be honest, moustaches are not my thing. And but even so, I did feel like, and I know it was for the laughs, but I actually just thought some of the things that were said were just mean, and I'm not a big fan of that. Being mean about the way somebody looks, to me, is not funny. So that was that, and there was a kind of an apology later on in the book, so they do acknowledge that was wrong. Overall, it was enjoyable. It was more of a slow burn. She is getting ready to move to England. He plays with her brother on his team. Her brother doesn't like anyone dating her, so the fact that they're even having conversation, he's like, I'm out, don't do this. And so they kind of team up. He wants to bolster the team and, you know, their reach, and she wants to basically annoy her brother. So, you know, good pair up. And there were some moments that were brilliant and that I really enjoyed and really connect with. And then there was somewhere I was like, okay, I don't really think this needed to be a 9-hour book. I think it could have been a little bit shorter, because in some parts not much was happening. There wasn't really, for me, any real point of like, oh, now they're dating, now they're not, sort of thing. It kind of just flowed into it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There is a moment with a game of Monopoly, which I thought was just brilliant, so funny. There was a cute little dog who gets their own chapter at the end. Samantha was brilliant in that. For me, the struggles came in with, it was never really clear where Fletcher was from. Was he American? Was he British? Because there were random British words being thrown in. The town, I'm assuming, was a made-up town, because it doesn't exist. So I think that was intentional, which I can understand. There were, like I say, lots of British terms thrown in, and some in random places that didn't really make sense. He used bloody more than a British person uses bloody. And to me, that was a bit distracting. And I think probably because I am a Brit. And at one point there was a term used and they said, oh, but the British would call it this. And I was like, no, they wouldn't. Never heard that word before in my life. And checked with some other people and they were like, no. And they talk about Cadbury chocolate. And it's funny because as Brits, at least as me and the people that I know, we've always put an S on the end. Even though we know that's not what the brand is, that's just what we call it. And I think, you know, there were moments where if you were going to do that, you could have like let that in. But that's just me. Now, that leads into the narration, and Jason uses a general American accent for the most part. There are a couple of times when he is using the British where he kind of slips in a little bit. And then we have Samantha's chapter. Remember, this is a dual narration. So then we have Samantha's chapters where the majority of the time Fletcher's dialogue is used in a British accent. And it is so distracting. I don't know. I'm assuming this is a producer issue, that they either didn't give the correct information to both of the narrators, or they didn't pick up on it in post and in proofing and go, oh, this doesn't work. What, we need to fix it, because it is distracting. And I think this is why a lot of people say they don't like dual, because of the inconsistency between what the characters sound like. Well, this was a big like difference. This wasn't like, oh, he talks this level and she talks that level. It's like a completely different accent. And both of them were fantastic. But in this instance, because they didn't sound the same, they weren't using the same accents, it was just really distracting. And I think, you know, reading it and like when it was being prepped, I don't think you would notice, because of the amount of British words and isms being used. To me, your instinct would be that it's a British character. So I can see how easy it was done if information was not given that said, hey, this character needs this accent. And I mean, I can take a guess as to why it wasn't picked up in proofing, and that would be that a human wasn't involved, but I could also be wrong with that. I just think it was really disappointing. But yeah, overall, it's an enjoyable book, and if you can overlook listening with the accents, if that doesn't bother you or it's not something that you really notice, then you'll probably be like, amazing. And the same with the book. If you are not bothered by those sorts of things, you'll just be like, yay. So yeah, if you like rom-coms and you want to give it a try, definitely go for it. Would I recommend it to a new listener? No. I wouldn't say this is a great book to sample as your first experience just because of those inconsistencies. But to a seasoned listener, I'd like, look, if you don't notice these things, go on ahead. But yeah, have you listened? Did you notice?